So the other aspect of this is all of this is lining up with end-time prophecy and with the second coming of Jesus. Jesus said concerning his second coming, you're going to hear of wars and rumours of wars, see you're not troubled, all these things must come to pass, the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, there'll be famines, pestilences and earthquakes in various places, all these are the beginning of sorrows. So when you see these things beginning to happen, then he's saying that this is leading up to the second coming of Jesus, which is another aspect of what's going on. Do you see these things happening? Not just COVID, you see other things happening in the world today which are pushing us towards that. Speaks about wars and rumours of wars, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. I think I've said before that there are 3 situations in the world today which could escalate into a major war, not just a minor one. One is in Russia and Ukraine, the other is in Israel and Iran, and the third one is China and Taiwan. Each of those are very dangerous situations which could escalate into conflict, which could end up even with nuclear exchange, because all the countries involved are nuclear. Now, I don't believe that God is going to allow a nuclear war before the second coming of Jesus, because if that happens, that could throw into confusion all the other things. But it's possible, of course. There could be limited nuclear exchange, but we see things happening which are extremely dangerous. The Ukrainian situation is very dire, actually. I don't know if you know too much about Ukraine, Russia, the Soviet Union. Ukraine is a country just south of Russia, formerly part of the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union broke up in 1991, it became an independent country along with other countries. But Russia, ever since, has been trying to get it back again and to get control over all the countries around about it. In 1994, actually, Ukraine, which had nuclear weapons on its site, gave them back to Russia on the understanding that Russia would not interfere in its independence or integrity. Well, it's doing that right now, and it's been doing it consistently in the last few years with taking Crimea and now eastern Ukraine and threatening the whole of Ukraine at this present time. There are 100,000 troops on the borders of Ukraine, and Ukrainian authorities are worried that they may invade in January or February. That's not too far away, is it? Putin says they won't, but Putin actually is worried about Ukraine because he doesn't want Ukraine to join NATO. He doesn't want Ukraine to join the European Union. Ukraine actually does want to join both of those because they see that they're better off in the European Union than under Russia, better off with some protection from NATO. Russia says if they do that, then that's a red line and they won't allow it to happen. So you've got a situation there in Ukraine. If they do go in, then what would NATO do something? They've said, the NATO chief said the Russian troop build-up was dangerous, sent out a warning that Russia could conduct a military action against Ukraine. Boris Johnson said the border situation was concerning Britain. Britain would back Ukraine in the face of Russian hostility. Britain's most senior officer, General Nick Carter, said he was distinctly hoped there would not be a war with Russia, but NATO would have to be ready. Well, obviously, everyone hopes there won't be a war with Russia because Russia is heavily armed with nuclear weapons. But I'm just telling you this because this is something which is on the agenda. It's happening now. The other big situation which could explode at any time, of course, is Israel and Iran. Israel has been openly talking in the last few months about plans to attack Iran, particularly its nuclear facilities. Iran is not cooperating at the present time with the nuclear talks with the United States and the West, and it may only be months away from producing a nuclear weapon. Israel says that's its red line and that they will not allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. What can they do about it? Actually, not a lot. But what they're saying is they will attack Iran's nuclear facilities, which would be an incredibly difficult thing to do because Iran is not just around the corner, it's over 1,000 miles away from Israel. But the fact they're even talking about it is kind of worrying, if you like. And Iran would certainly not sit back and do nothing if Israel attacks it. It's got weapons all around the place. And Russia is also on the side of Iran. And if Russia sees Iran being hit, Russia could also come back against Israel. Russia's got its forces today in Syria, as does Iran, just to the north of Israel. And there are people who are saying that this is lining up for the war of Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38 and 39. Now, obviously, we as Christians, if you believe the Bible, you don't want those things to happen, so you pray that they won't. But they're not too far away when you look at what's happening. And these are just some of the situations in the world which are threatening us with the future.